On my wedding night, I realized I wasn't a bride, I was a deal made without my voice, without my tears, without my choice. Still remember the car ride to that stranger's house. Every mile felt heavier than the last. I kept telling myself, it can't be this bad, it just can't. But as the gates opened, my heart sank. The house was cold, silent, and filled with people I had never seen before. The groom, a man whose face I barely recognized, smiled like I was nothing more than an object in some cruel game. Every step I took felt like I was walking deeper into a trap, and I couldn't scream because nobody was listening. I was led into a room decorated with flowers and lights, but to me it felt like a cage. My hands shook, my heart raced. I realized this wasn't my wedding, it was someone else's story they forced onto me. Then the man looked at me with a smile that made my blood run cold, and whispered that tonight everything would begin. The moment he whispered words, I felt a chill run down my spine. Every corner of the room seemed darker than before. I wanted to turn and run, but my feet felt frozen. I could hear my own heartbeat pounding louder than anything else. The guests outside were laughing and celebrating, but inside I felt trapped in a nightmare I had never imagined. He held my hand firmly, but it wasn't gentle. It felt like a claim, like I belonged to something I had never agreed to. His eyes were cold, calculating, and I realized that no one here cared about what I wanted. I wanted to speak, but my voice was lost somewhere between fear and disbelief. And then I noticed a door slightly open at the corner of the room, as if it was hiding a secret that no one wanted me to see. I slowly moved to the slightly open door, my heart racing every second. I could feel the fear crawling up my spine. The laughter outside faded into a distant echo, as if the world had disappeared and left only this room and the secret it held. I reached out my trembling hand and peeked inside. The room was empty, but the walls were lined with photographs of girls I had never seen before, their eyes staring back as if silently warning me. Shiver ran through me, and I realized these were all the girls who had been trapped here before me, every one of them forced into the same nightmare I was now part of. I wanted to turn away, but my curiosity kept pulling me closer. I noticed a folded letter on a small table with my name written on it. And then a voice behind me whispered my name softly, but with a tone that made me freeze in place. I turned slowly toward the voice, my heart pounding so loudly I thought it might burst. The room felt smaller somehow, like the walls were closing in around me. I saw him standing there, his shadow stretching across the floor like a warning. I wanted to speak, but no words came out. His eyes locked on mine, and I realized he knew every thought in my head. He took a step closer, and I could smell the faint scent of his cologne, mixed with something cold and sharp. The letter in my hand suddenly felt heavier, like it carried all the pain of the girls in the photographs. I couldn't stop myself from opening it, my hands shaking uncontrollably. Then I read the first line, and my blood ran cold, as it revealed exactly what he had planned for me tonight. The letter trembled in my hands as I read the words scrawled in dark ink. Every sentence felt like a knife cutting through my chest. It told me that tonight I had no choice, that every moment had been planned without me, that I was nothing but a shadow in someone else's story. I sank to the floor, trying to make sense of it, but the fear only grew louder. The air felt heavy, and the room colder, as if it too understood the horror of what was coming. I looked up and saw him smiling, as if he enjoyed the torment he had carefully orchestrated. My mind raced for escape, but every door seemed locked in my imagination, like the house itself was conspiring against me. I felt tears burning my eyes, but I forced myself to stay silent. And then a faint noise behind the curtains made me realize I was not alone in the room. I slowly inched toward the curtains, my breath shallow and rapid, my hands trembling, as if they had a mind of their own. The faint noise grew louder, like a whisper mixed with sobs. I reached the edge and pulled the curtain slightly aside. My eyes widened in horror as I saw another girl sitting in the corner, her face pale and haunted. Her eyes met mine, and I saw a silent plea that sent shivers down my spine. She opened her mouth, as if to speak, but no sound came out. Her presence made the room feel heavier. Every beat of my heart screamed that I needed to leave, yet I was rooted to the spot. I realized then that she had been here longer than I could imagine, trapped in this nightmare. And the man standing behind me was responsible for every tear, she had cried, and then she pointed toward the door with her trembling finger and whispered that the real nightmare was only beginning. I felt my stomach twist as I followed her trembling finger toward the door. Every step I took echoed in the silent room like a warning. The man's eyes never left mine, and I realized he was savoring my fear. The air seemed to press against me heavier with every breath. I tried to think of an escape, but my mind was clouded with panic. As I reached the door, I slowly pushed it open, and a cold gust hit my face. The hallway was dark and narrow with shadows dancing on the walls. My pulse raced, and I could hear faint whispers that seemed to come from nowhere. I could barely see, but I felt a presence around every corner, as if the house itself was alive and watching me. And then I heard a soft creak behind me and realized that someone was following me closely, watching my every move. My heart pounded in my chest as I slowly turned toward the sound. Every shadow seemed alive, and every step echoed louder than the last. The girl behind me whimpered softly, and I realized that she was terrified. The hallway stretched endlessly ahead, and I felt trapped like a mouse in a dark maze. Figure emerged from the shadows, and I could barely make out his face. The man smiled again, cold and menacing, and I knew he had been waiting for me to step into the trap. His footsteps were slow and deliberate, closing the distance with each passing second. My mind screamed at me to run, but my body refused to obey. Then the girl grabbed my hand tightly and whispered that the only way out was through the room ahead, where the real horror awaited. I took a deep breath and followed her trembling hand toward the room. Ahead, the door loomed in front of me, dark and foreboding, like the mouth of some creature ready to swallow me whole. My legs shook, but I forced myself forward, every step heavier than the last. The air grew colder, and the shadows seemed to twist and writhe around me, as if alive. When I finally reached the room, pushed the door open, and froze. The walls were covered with photographs and belongings of girls I had never met, but whose pain I could feel piercing through every picture. The man stood in the center with a look that made my blood run cold. He slowly raised his hand toward me as if claiming me once again. Then the girl whispered, trembling, that what he had planned for me inside this room was something I could never forget. I stepped into the room, my heart pounding in my chest. The man's eyes were fixed on me, cold and merciless. I could feel every ounce of fear he had orchestrated pressing down on me. The girl who had guided me stood trembling, but gave me a nod as if telling me I could do this, summoning every bit of courage I had. I shouted the truth of everything he had done, every lie and every plan he had forced upon me. The shock in his eyes was all I needed to push past him. I ran through the hallways. The doors seemed endless, but I didn't stop. I could feel freedom just a few steps away. Finally, I burst through the front door into the night. The cold air hit my face, and I felt tears streaming down my cheeks. For the first time in hours, I was free. The girls trapped before me were still watching from the shadows, but now I knew their stories would be heard too. If you ever feel trapped or silenced, remember that your voice is your power. Don't let anyone take it away. To watch the full journey and see how I survived every nightmare, make sure to subscribe to our channel and click the bell icon so you never miss a story like mine.